So 22.01.00 is coming out to all servers that are in implementation or test servers tonight. And then it will go out to all production servers next Tuesday night so that it will be ready for you on Wednesday. We've got a bunch of cool things for you this time. Some of them are good for everybody. Some of them are good for a smaller subset. So the first thing that we had was we had a request for two-factor authentication. And we talked about this a couple of times over the last couple of Aspen gatherings. We're debating between single sign-on and two-factor authentication and went with two-factor authentication. So I'll show you how it works first, and then we can talk about how to set it up. So I'm going to sign in, and I'm going to sign in as my staff account. So we'll see brand new now. We've got a two-factor authentication pop up instead of just being logged in. And what I'm going to do now is go over to my email. And I was sent an email that has my one-time login code. And I just copy from there and paste it in here. And then I can verify that and I'm in. So this is verifying against the email in their account, which is just a way to prove that they are who they are. It is specific then to their browser, to their device, to their session. So if you log out, log back in, you have to authenticate again. If you stay logged in, then you don't. So the new settings for that, for the patron or staff member, are within security settings. So this is where I can say turn off my two-factor authentication or turn it on. So let's try turning it off. So it's turned off. If we turn it back on, so we'll set it up. We choose a verification method, which is email in this case. We send that. That sends me a new code. And then we have some backup verification codes generated as well. So if I forget or if I don't have access to my email, I can remember, oh, 217258 is a code to get in. And each of those can only be used once. So really easy. There is a way to, on the staff side, send a one-time verification code to an individual user. We'll take a look at that next. So this is basically all I need to do from a staff perspective. Let's look at it then from an admin and getting set up. So I'm going to sign out, sign back in as our admin. So you will now see new settings under primary configuration for two-factor authentication. So we go in here. I've already created one. It will start blank. You'll just hit add new. Let's just edit what I've got. So in this case, I just called it staff. For the test machine, we're only going to have our staff authenticated. You could do patrons, but it depends on how many calls you want to get. But locking it down to people that are able to get or that have escalated permissions maybe within Aspen is something you might want to do. So you can kind of control if it's enabled or not. So yes, it's optional. Yes, everybody has to do that. So based off the patron type, you give a denied message. So if it fails, there's a message that pops up. Which libraries is it appropriate for? So you can have this for different libraries and different patron types. So in this case, only library staff has that enabled. And then if somebody does get locked out, from here you can click recover user account. And we may move this to the sidebar as well. And then you would just enter that. So if we say Mark, generate the code, this gives me a code that I can then tell somebody over the phone. So easy way to unlock things if somebody gets locked out, verify them however you choose to over the phone. That is two-factor authentication. I'll pause 1 sec to check chat. Looks good. Moving on, we've got, oh, so actually one more part of that under library system administration. Now we have given the ability, because for people that have two-factor authentication logged or turned on, it's going to be really annoying to log out a lot. So we have a new option here under ILS account integration and login, where you can say check remember me by default when outside the library. So what that's going to do is, by default, remember me will be on as long as we're not detecting you at an IP address inside the library, so that you'll be remembered until you log out. We didn't want to default this on because not everybody has their IP addresses set up to know when you're in the library or not. We don't want people to stay logged on inside the library. So if you are testing that, so on a local computer, it's going to remember what you do. So if I've checked remember me, the next time I load it, it's going to do it. So if you're testing that and playing with it, use a private window or something like that, just to test the actual default value. So was there a question or no? Okay. Next thing is forgot PIN. This is kind of similar. So this is for the libraries that don't have a forgot PIN functionality built into the ILS. There is a new reset my password. So if I've forgotten my password, I have no idea what it is, I can enter my barcode. That. We'll click reset PIN. This is going to then email me a token. And from that token, you can either click a link, which will take you to the page, or you can copy the token into this box. And from there, we can then say, enter whatever password you want or PIN, update, and then we can go on to login and get logged in with our new password. So just a nice way to do it. You'll see that we're starting to branch out into more emails and more of that functionality that's kind of borderline ILS discovery, kind of patron-facing functionality. So lots of cool stuff there. Other stuff we have, so we've added the ability to have, I'm gonna go, so here's my, look at 2 different pages here. So I have an in library page. Oop. Remember what I called that? I thought I called it in library. Oh, internal, close. Yeah, and there is still the option to not allow patrons to reset passwords. That has to be turned on. Right now, the only thing that forget password works for is Polaris. We'll look at expanding that to other ILSs as well, but ILSs like Koha, Symphony already have a password, forgot password, kind of password reset mechanism that is display that we use by default and can be disabled. So this internal page, we want to be able to have that only accessible if the patron is logged out, or sorry, logged in or inside the library. So let's go back and look at those settings. So let's look at that internal page. So we've set this up so it does require login to access. We're going to allow access without logging in while in the library. And let's just say that we're requiring, so any patron type can access this. So we're going to save those changes. I'm logged in, so let's log out. And now let's go to that /internal page. I'm just going to say, hey, you don't have access to the page, but you might be able to view it if we sign in. I can sign in and access it. That's functionality we had before. The other functionality we've added is the ability, if we detect that you're inside the library based off your IP address or one of those branch codes, then it's accessible as well. So just in another window here, I'm going to my IP address settings, and I'm going to set my home IP address to say that I'm inside the main library. So I'm saving those. And now when we refresh this, because I'm inside the library, we get the text of the actual page. I didn't put a whole lot of text there, but we can now say I am currently inside the main branch, so I get to see that even though I'm not logged in. This is really cool because for resources that want to do validation that your patrons are either logged in or inside the library, you can now use these pages as referring URLs. So when you sign in, it should take you back to the page, but we can double check that. But yeah, for people that want to use referring URLs or guarantee that you're logged in or in the library, this can then be your referring URL. So you can essentially do what like Easy Proxy does and say, we're guaranteeing that the patron is valid based off this referring URL, provide that to your database vendor, and then they can grant access easily. This is also available for web resources. So if you have locked down a resource, when you click the Open Resource button, it will do the same kind of validation. So here I'm being directed to Ancestry.com. It's not a real library, Ancestry.com, but you can verify that it does the same thing. So let's log back in and look at that configuration. So let's edit this. So new setting there is, it is in library use only and require being logged in to access unless in library. So there's a couple of questions in chat. So we'll take just a second, and when you sign in, it takes you to the page. So yes, it will take you to the page. We'll confirm that, and if it doesn't, we'll fix that. So we could set up pages for different areas in the library with unique offerings. So you could have a children's library page for their catalog computers. Oh, do one setup and something else for adult nonfiction collection. Oh, for summer reading. We would need to look more into that. Let's talk about that more and see how that works. But you could potentially do something like that. Yeah, that'd be cool. Let me show just like a couple more things. I know we're running out of time real quick, but this is really cool. I really love the ability to do that. Let's see. We also, under themes, there is a new for accessibility. If we go into, we'll just go into our default theme. You can now at the very bottom, oh, sorry, this is in layout settings. You can control what contrast you want. So you can say, rather than the WCAG 2.0 AA compliance, we want the 2.1 AAA, which just boosts the minimum contrast when you're setting up the theme. So that's a new option for you. And then the last thing that I'm unfortunately not going to have a ton of time to talk about is we did a bunch of work with searches. So based off the last Aspen gathering, we had a couple of tickets submitted during the last Aspen gathering based off conversation related to start of title searching. Also some issues with diacritics. We've done a lot to fix title-based searches. as well as diacritics. So let me just show a couple, and then I will hand the floor back over. So we were having issues with some Spanish, so this title specifically couldn't be found. If you were searching without the diacritics, so this is their production system, this couldn't be found if we said, hey, we don't actually have diacritics here. And now that works. So here is the search with diacritics, or that's without, but there we go. So it shows up first. There were also a number of searches based off start of title or capitalization of titles. So like the Pioneers was giving different results than the Pioneers with lower cases. That's all been fixed. So we're working on search. We'll talk about it more, but lots of good fixes around search, diacritics, that kind of thing. Ton more in the release notes, so please take a look at the release notes. I'll link that in the chat here. And give us all of your feedback between now and next Tuesday, so we can resolve any issues in this, and we're really looking forward to getting it out there. So pass it back over to Morgan.